Albert Einstein once said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. What was your moment when someone judged you like that? When HR at a company had me interview for a different position than I had applied for. The position they interviewed me for was one I knew nothing about, and told them as much. Despite me telling them before each round of interviews that they had made a mistake, I still had to endure a full day of people asking me questions that I had no answer to. I was the fish trying, and failing, to climb the tree, and my boss called to offer me a position swimming. That time my boss called me to tell me I sucked at my job, but followed it up by telling me I got crazy good comments about this one small part of my job, so would I like to do that full time? Did the new thing for 6 years and used it to land another, even better, position at the same company. Thanks for recognizing my talents, old boss. You were a bit of a shit boss, but when it mattered you really were a hell. Judged the country kids in my English class for being dumb fucks, until I did an autos class. What I found incomprehensible, they could do with ease. I had become the dumb fuck. The time my middle school art teacher called my parents because she thought I was purposefully mocking her by making my art bad. I literally can't draw beyond a 3rd grade level unless I am copying an object right in front me. My parents basically cussed her out after they saw how hurt I was. I am very dyslexic. It results in me having the spelling and grammar of a middle schooler, plus it makes me have trouble hearing similar sounding words. Letters and phonic sounds don't always connect to the idea they represent in my head. I read/listen to the overall idea and not the individual letters. As a result, school was a very mixed bag. I had to be very hard working to compensate for the disability. I became very good at working with people. I learned to plan ahead because I can't do things last minute, and developed a strong logic skill set. The problem is that many teachers thought I was lazy because I would describe what I thought while the other person wrote it down, etc. In college, the department head of chemistry is the teacher that fully understands who I am as an academic student. He thought it was hilarious that I had the highest lab grade while the low end of the class portion. Apparently it caused heated discussions as to why the only non-pre-med was doing so much better than the pre-med students in laboratory classes. I think he was the only teacher that appreciated that I was good at working with people and terrible at writing papers for classes. USMC judges you on your ability to run. No matter how good or bad you are at anything, if you can run fast, you are presumed better at everything. It overcomes crimes, mental retardation, and absolute stupidity. Once someone on Reddit started complaining about something and said I wasn't a real man for a bunch of reasons. I'm a woman, so they're not exactly wrong. When I get introduced to a new person, but I'm not part of the conversation, I just sit and wait. Then I get told, "Oh, you're really quiet." Huh? No, I just didn't want to interrupt, but when I was on the Navy I used to get in fairly frequent trouble for the suggestions I made for improving operational efficiencies. As an outside contractor, they were quite happy to pay me $200 an hour to say the exact same thing. I lived in Argentina, from us, for a little bit as a kid. At a parent-teacher conference early in the school year, one art teacher had to break it to my parents that I might be mentally disabled because I don't respond or participate. They let her know I didn't speak any Spanish, at the time. She had no idea because Noon told her and my name is Spanish and it just didn't occur to her. Once at my workplace, I asked for help to open a box because I really couldn't open it. This one girl I worked with looked at me with disgust and didn't help me. She later talked shit about me and said I'm fucking stupid. I was born with polydactyly and they cut off my 2 extra fingers and fixed a lot of stuff. I can't use all my fingers properly. By the way, fuck you Sarah. Edit. Wow, I never thought that a comment about calling out Sarah's bullshit would be my most upvoted one, nor that it would blow up like that. Thank you, kind strangers. I'm 6 feet 6 inches, and I suck at basketball. This was kind of judging as well as being judged. In my high school guitar class, me and one other girl were both really struggling. I judged her as being bad at music / unskilled / stupid, like me. Thing is, I remember an incident of my teacher, who was very technologically improficient, asking my help with typing something he'd written by hand. He was trying to read it aloud to me, but eventually I just asked him to set it down where I could see it, because it was easier and faster for me to touch type it. He was floored by how fast and how well / correctly I could type that way, and while many, if not most, 16-year-olds probably can now, back then it was a little less usual. Not too long after, like a week I think, the piano in the music room was, for once, left uncovered. That girl who I judged as being a fellow musical idiot sat down and started playing that piano phenomenally. I have a very visceral and vindicating memory of my guitar teacher looking between her, me, the computer, and my hands, and saying, "You know, that actually explains a lot." TLDR, I judged myself and a guitar classmate as unskilled idiots, discounting just how great our typing and piano skills were. EDA. So apparently my 80 WPM typing speed might not have become as widespread and normalized as I thought. Till. Hey, you're doing computer science, right? Can you fix my PC? This was basically my childhood, because I was bad at math. I guess most children goes through this, which is very sad. Only at uni did I realize that I didn't have to be good at everything. I had a professor, who spoke 13 languages, but couldn't count how much 5 + 4 is. He's the best at his field. I was teased a lot in middle school / early high school for loving hockey. Would constantly get my knowledge tested, my appearance would get brought into it. Why would a fat girl like hockey? Had someone ask me if it was my passion and laugh in my face when I said yes. Jokes on them, I'm an officially credentialed journalist by the NHL now and have personally spoken to more players than they could dream of buying autographs from. Playing sports growing up, I would make these comically bad errors. The ball would hit me directly in the face or I would swing at a pitch too late. Everyone gave me shit, even the coaches and parents. I kept playing because I enjoyed being active and around my friends, but I never understood why no matter how much I practiced I struggled with basic things that everyone else could do without thinking. I go to the eye doctor as an adult, and he tells me that I have a condition in one of my eyes that means I don't have binocular vision and as a result have very poor depth perception. It's physically impossible for me to track a moving object in space like everyone else. 90% of what Albert Einstein quotes on the internet was not said by Albert Einstein. Internet 2019. I mostly judged myself. My whole life I pressured myself to be just as smart as my dad and brother, who were phenomenal in math and engineering. My dad has an IQ of 138 and my brother always had A's and made the dean's list in post-secondary. The institution gave out entire cakes to those on the dean's list. I struggled so hard in math. I tried so hard, exponentially more than any other kid, because I felt like if I didn't get good at math, or any subject for that matter, then I wasn't smart. Always a C and B student. Because I wasn't good at something, I very much lived years feeling I was stupid. Then as I grew older I realized that my skills in art were actually worth something. My art teachers were always very impressed. Soon it progressed to people making me offers. The school's police officer even had me make him something. I had some artwork displayed at the city's airport. And when I expressed to my dad that I felt like there were no jobs for me on my degree, he said to try something else. I asked what, and he said art, which I thought was a little funny for the starving artist stereotype. In that moment, it felt like he equated my artistic skills to his intelligence and success. In school I was too nerdy for the jocks and too jockish for the nerds. Now that we have all grown up, I take everyone's money in fantasy football. So many moments in my life. I was unfortunately born a girl who likes boy things. I love cars, mechanics, truck driving and long road trips. My dad was a mechanic. From the time I was tiny, I was in his garage or workshop, wanting to help him. Learning the names of tools and car parts. When I was around 9, I told him I was gonna grow up to be a mechanic someday, just like him. I thought he'd be proud. He told me that girls aren't mechanics and I'd better find something else to do. He wouldn't let me near his garage after that. Even when I got my own car and went to change the oil on it myself, he caught me and kicked me out and said that I was just a girl. I've heard that my whole life. I am disappointed in myself because now I'm not a young woman anymore. I've forgotten over the years what car parts are called. I still love to take long road trips, but my dad, and mom, for that matter, squashed out so much ambition. I really hate them and myself for allowing it. I hate professions that are typically done by females. I'm not good at any of them but have done them my entire working career to fit the norm and not rock the boat. I feel like life has been wasted and opportunity disposed of. I was a ballerina and I always had a hard time picking up choreography. Other dancers could watch a dance once and know it, some could even do it from a video. I needed to be shown a combination a few times, and to go over it a few more, and even then I would forget it the next day. I felt really stupid. Anyway, ballet didn't really work out, and now I have a PhD, so I'm not a complete idiot. In kindergarten we were learning penmanship and my teacher was telling us how to write our alphabet, but for some reason I could not write the letters no matter how hard I tried. Since I was able to write the alphabet before, I got very frustrated and started crying. Turns out she was showing the class how to do letters with your right hand and I was left-handed. Edit. After rereading my comment, I judged that it came off as r/I am very smart material a bit. Sorry. Judged my friend for having very naive and dumb knowledge/beliefs about stuff like economics, politics, geography, history, language, culture, etc. but she was extremely social and extroverted, while I was this somewhat grumpy guy and sucked at making connections with people, still do. Nowadays, she works at a high position in the marketing department at a very major global tech corporation's office in our country, in Europe. I'm a sysadmin and a half programmer. I ended up studying pol-sci and taking some computer science classes. I wouldn't say my education is bad or that it's a useless degree, just that being able to make friends and influence people is much more important than having a lot of knowledge. When I do my 2 hours of daily piano practice, I begin with 5 octaves of scales in every key, major and minor. My brother got weary of hearing this day after day and said, "If you keep playing those scales, you're going to turn into a fish." In high school I was really good at debate and aced all my government classes. However, I had to take a pottery class for an art credit. I sucked hardcore. My vase looked like some bees had taken crack before they built their hive. The teacher legitimately thought I was special needs. 2 years later I was working retail to help put myself through college. I ran into the teacher one day. "It is so awesome you have a job. Good for you." I felt like Kevin Malone being patronized by Holly Flax. My mother loves to tell this story to her friends. When I said Albert Einstein once said if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree it will live its whole life thinking it's stupid, and they said he never said that. Edit. Yet I'm that guy big hoop wanna fight about it? Thanks for my first ever gold kind stranger. I was forced to attend art classes and team sports physical ed in school, mandatory until year 11, art, or 13, respectively. Those two made sure that my average was ruined. I can't draw or throw a ball even if my life depended on it, got the grades to match, and B, in my most awkward social phase, I got humiliated regularly by well-meaning teachers who couldn't understand that being good at math and physics does not translate into drawing or predicting a ball's movement, forcing me to do it again, and again, and again, while the whole class enjoyed the show. Had an English teacher that said any stories I wrote were bad. I thought that I'd done a good job on it, so I showed it to a different English teacher who said it was brilliant but I needed to spell check it. Turns out the first teacher basically didn't read it, just saw the spelling errors. Several years later I got diagnosed with dyslexia. When I was asked to climb a tree. So I'm from India and education system in here used to be really bad. We have special exams known as board exams and those scores can help us get into a better college/uni. The issue here is, our teachers force us to write the exact same way the answers are given as in the textbook, including the punctuation. I know it sounds crazy but it's true, nothing must be skipped. The teachers who must help the students to actually study and understand the concepts, ask us to mug things up BC. All they want is 100% pass percentage and not the proper education. And me on the other hand was terrible at memorizing and remembering stuff if I don't understand the concept in the first place, so I failed some subjects during my monthly tests and for that I was made to feel like I'm stupid and useless, and the only thing I told to myself was this quote. But I got some decent scores at my final exams, thanks to YouTube. Everything in the internet is true. Julius Caesar 1420. I was always told how bad sleeping in class was despite acing my classes, and teachers would complain to my parents about how much I slept. I felt so horrible for so long and slept early almost every day to no avail. Turns out I have narcolepsy. My mother had borderline. She caused a lot of trouble. She constantly judged me for not remaining emotionally sound in incredibly stressful situations, e.g. threatening to kill herself / put bars on my windows / send me to psyche hospitals, blaming everyone else for fights when she always overreacted and caused them in the first place, saying I ruined Christmas dinner because I knew she would be there and didn't want to show up. She was so scary I couldn't even speak to her when she pried the lock off my bedroom door and sat down on my bed to talk to me. She always called me a mute and said I had mental problems. Save for some obvious residual issues that crop up in anyone who went through this, I have very little problem, emotion-wise or communication-wise, with other people besides her. I see it all the time in the army based on fitness test scores, or even perceived fitness test scores. As one of my old military science professors taught my class, the military is the only place in the world where, for some reason, people will act like you're a total idiot, drag on the team, and failure at life because you did 41 push-ups instead of at least 42, despite being the exact same person and critical member of the team from a day before. Why don't you just keep everything organized, so you don't lose stuff? Turns out, it's because I'm ADHD, being disorganized and losing stuff is literally my natural state of being. I used to play a lot of poker on my phone but never with real people. At one point I was up well over $1 million. One day I went to a convention and there was a charity poker game. Since a lot of time on the phone the computer gives you your options and so on, I was excruciatingly awkward and came across as a bumbling idiot who didn't know what he was doing. This wasn't intentional but it did work in my favor. I won a nice tablet that night. My husband loved to read as a child despite his mild dyslexia, but in second grade he started to really struggle with school. After being held back for a year and being told by a teacher that he was a slow kid, another teacher took note of the oddity of my husband's change of learning. He suggested to his mom to have his eyes checked. Turns out my hubby is blind as a bat and needed glasses. Sadly, he never recovered his love of reading. Maybe for some it won't be a situation like the Einstein quote, but I felt like a fish trying to climb a tree. A few months ago I got the chance for an interview for an okay job. I finished all tests with almost 100% and finished the first 2 interviews quite good, and when I got to the last one they started asking me questions that had nothing to do with my profession. I was completely silent because it has nothing to do with what I studied. I think that I even looked like a fish gasping for water. After they started to make fun of me, I just walked out. I was the fat kid in middle school, and everyone thought I was lazy and stupid. A few years later, I was running several miles at a time, and I became the first person in my family to go to college. I only expressed interest in a few things when I was a kid: cooking, making games. My parents told me they were bad careers and made me play soccer and do scouts and other things I hated. I was terrible academically all the way through the end of college, where I studied management, because these things I was told I was supposed to be doing were of zero interest to me. A few years out I taught myself to code, and now I spend my life making games and cooking for friends, and I'm fucking great at it. That quote has always rung true for me, but on top of that I really feel this: adults, Stop telling kids what they should be interested in. If a kid is interested in something you don't get, when they're an adult it's highly likely that this thing will be a marketplace with hundreds of millions of consumers and will absolutely be a career. If they were involved early, they'll be golden. Most people have a very backwards-looking view of the economy, and don't understand how totally it changes with each generation. There's a real stigma against sex writing among a lot of writers that somehow it doesn't count, or that it's just lazy trash. On a lot of writers' forums, you'll see people looking down their nose at the smut writers, with the implication that they only write smut because they lack the talent to write anything more substantial. Weirdly, the people who get most arsy about it tend to be sci-fi/fantasy authors, which are the genres that generally have just about the same low bar to entry and chaff to wheat ratio that erotica and sex writing has. Nah, son. I write smut because that's where the money is, and I self-publish because I like being in control of my own stuff. I like to think I'm a pretty solid writer, but being a starving artist sucks. This way, I get people to actually read my stuff, and I get the luxury of, in theory, at least, working on my more serious projects while still earning a living telling stories that people enjoy. I have dyslexia and at age 15 still couldn't tell my left hand from my right. I also had a lot of trouble learning to read and write. I got written off by a lot of teachers. Turns out I'm pretty good at analysis even if I struggle with the basics. I ended up with a PhD. That stupid make an L trick? Yeah. Just put one hand palm up and you either make an L twice or not at all. Threw a fish at a tree. Was contacted by a recruiter and pitched a job opening that fit my description perfectly, as recruiters do. I pushed back and asked to see the exact listing, so I could verify. I questioned a bit on the requirements that stated specific programming knowledge, and was assured multiple times that, while it was on there, it wasn't the primary job function and they don't need a programmer. So, booked the interview. Showed up, said hellos, and was thrown at a terminal and asked to write a pile of custom code for something. Had to politely explain that I was assured multiple times by the recruiter that this wasn't a programming position, and was told to just give it a shot anyway since you're already here. Like, you're looking for a programmer and you're so hard up that you'd waste your time interviewing someone who's just told you that they don't program at all? One of the interviewers was their lead programmer, and she was extremely petulant toward me for wasting their time. It was quite the experience. Remembering people's names. I'm great at remembering faces and things about people, except for their names. People think I'm inconsiderate, when in fact I just can't remember names half the time. It doesn't help that I can remember massive amounts of dumb trivia and school material, but just not the names of people I meet. Visualize. 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 You're not visualizing. Try visualizing it and base it on that. I have aphantasia, dude. My third grade English and math teacher used me a "don't be like him" example and literally told the whole class that I was stupid and would never amount to anything, and they all laughed at me. Fucking assholes. A little background. School was hard for me, I couldn't sit still and was always distracted by something. I never got good grades in elementary school, and even now I still have trouble focusing. I'm autistic, so just take your pick from half of my everyday interactions with people. When I went to a state university, They opened the freshman orientation with that quote, then said that they want to help build students' curriculum to their needs and what works with them. And then we were given very specific classes that we needed to take, several of which the professors said were weed out classes. They proceeded to judge every fish on its ability to climb. Me judging another guy. I served with this guy who we all believe was a complete idiot. Just everything he said and did was idiotic. While we were in Thailand, he spent an hour talking to a Thai Marine. I will be damned if he didn't learn enough of the language to take a taxi around a city. I firmly believe he would have become fluent if we left him there for a week. Despite the fact that my 12-year-old niece can't read, my sister and I spent years pushing her school district to put her in advanced/gifted classes. They refused because she was getting BS and CS and could hardly read. Last year we got her tested. Turns out she has a crazy high IQ and severe dyslexia. So we took the district to court. Now she's in all advanced/gifted classes with a few accommodations and she's getting straight A's. Just like we said. Assholes. When I was in 2nd grade, in the 80s, I told the teacher I had a theory that there was a black hole in the center of our galaxy. That's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Turns out 8-year-old me was right. This saying is too often used as an excuse for not exerting yourself. Of course I didn't do well on the math test, I am not math-minded. That, and you didn't put in enough practice, didn't push yourself outside your comfort zone. I'm dyslexic, and during secondary school, many of my teachers told my mom that I wouldn't get into college and wouldn't do well in my state exams. I suck at exams, but I still managed to get into college and work my way up. I now have 2 masters and I am doing really well in my current job, where I am always thinking of out-of-the-box ideas. Just because you think differently and cannot express myself well in exams or essays doesn't mean that you can't succeed. There is many ways to do that in life. It just took me a long time to not feel stupid due to my teachers. In high school and early college, I was very bad at anything physical. A lot of that was because I didn't put time into anything physical because I didn't have the energy. I just wanted to sleep and eat. I did very well in school though, and let that be my main thing. Turns out I was crazy depressed with BPD/OCD. Once I started getting help, I started working out more and got a job that requires physical labor. Now I'm still doing well in school and work out 5 times a week. I lost 50 pounds and got to a healthy weight and have started developing muscle. I still struggle with my mental health, and that can make simple tasks a struggle. But identifying why I couldn't seem to do some things has helped me start overcoming those roadblocks. Not me, but my brother. When he was in elementary school, when grades are based on things other than test scores, the teacher noted on his report card that he needs to work on his skill at cutting with scissors. My brother is left-handed, and the scissors in the classroom were for right-handed people. I worked as a private groom for a family whose previous groom was a world-class groomer and had worked for some of the world's best horse riders. I was constantly being compared to her with everything I did, when they full well knew I was fresh out of college and only am apprenticeship under my belt. I was happy to leave there. Because I'm a programmer, just extremely interested in web development, I'm supposed to be a mathematician genius. I'm not. I failed math 3 years in a row. Yesterday I received my first A for math, in my entire high school career. I'm kinda proud of myself. I was told by a trainer at work and her equally judgmental friend that I got nothing but boobs just because I act stupid sometimes and don't engage in their so-called intellectual arguments. Fuck. This bitch has got boobs and brains. Empty cans really make a lot of noise. One teacher was intent on holding me back the first year in school, kindergarten/elementary, age 5, because I sucked at arts and crafts. The next year they let me skip a grade cause I already knew how to read and write, which I taught myself a year prior. They just didn't test it at the time and it wasn't part of the curriculum the first year. Excuse me, do you know where I can find garlic powder here? Me. I don't work here. Never mind, I'll ask someone that's not stupid. Me. Well. Okay then. Did one of those minute math tests, where you need to do as many of the questions in a minute to help memorize. I did not do well. Went to pass it in and the teacher said in front of the entire class, "The Bajans, you are as slow as molasses." That one hurt for a while. Would realize after finishing school I am smart, just not too good at memorizing. When I was 7, I was in first grade. I couldn't really run because it turned out that I had both legs wrong. I had my Achilles tendon too short, my kneecaps were outside its place and my femur was slightly, 28 degrees rotated, and I had knock knees. No one knew about this, only me who was suffering every 4 steps lol. Anyway. Everyone told me I was lazy, that I should go outside and do some sport. I was a fatty because I couldn't even run. I'm a chemistry major at university here in the US. I took a few extra years to get started, and spread the courses out over about 6 years rather than 4. I'm 26 now, but fellow students always assume I'm the idiot of the group project. They're mostly right, they're all better at chemistry. But I'll work on the projects till 2 AM if it means I learn the material and can sleep knowing I did my part. Also, I'm a bartender, and most of these guys act like they've never interacted with people socially, let alone step foot in a bar. I'm hopeful my social skills and work ethic will take me further than my degree. A dude in high school looked at me straight in the eyes and said, "You're too good looking to be intelligent." Weirdest moment of my life, as I wasn't able to respond to this crap. I was told that I was pathetic because I didn't know how to back a trailer with a pickup at 29 years old. I grew up without a father and never had anyone to teach me really much of anything. To this day I've only changed oil in a car once, and that was when I was 16, so I forgot how to do it. The point I had to make to this guy was that nobody knows how to do anything until the first time they do it, and everyone's lives are different. My life played out in a way that I either never had anyone teach me to back a trailer or never had to do it until I was 29. Shit happens. I needed a performance art class for my degree. I took drawing. I made many mistakes and etiquette errors. Did you know you're not supposed to talk to the nude models? I didn't. It's also really frowned upon to request specific positions because you find drawing foreshortening quite challenging. Oh, also, I suck at drawing as it turns out. The prof wanted to give me a D. We had a chat. I told him I should be graded like I was a psych major with no talent whatsoever who did develop a number of technical improvements over the semester. I got an A-. He said I should have taken debate instead, because I clearly had a talent for that.